The lawyer's words echoed in Nina's head as she stood in front of the collapsing mill. Your brother got the house and the savings. You got this. Marcus had smirked. At least you won't have to pay property taxes on a condemned building, he'd said, already calculating what he'd do with their father's $80,000 nest egg. But that was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks earlier, Nina stared at the final notice from the electric company. Disconnection in 48 hours. She folded it carefully and slipped it into the drawer with the others. Rent overdue by 12 days. Car payment missed for the second month. The hospital bill from Lily's broken arm still sitting at $3,400. Mama, are we going to be okay? Lily stood in the doorway of their efficiency apartment, holding her patched backpack. 6 years old. Too young to understand poverty, but old enough to feel its weight in her mother's silence. Always, baby. Nina forced brightness into her voice. The same brightness she manufactured every morning at 4 a.m. for her shift at Morrison's Bakery. Every afternoon, doing data entry from the cracked laptop on their kitchen table. Every weekend serving coffee at the truck stop off Route 9. Her phone buzzed. Marcus, Dad died. Heart attack. Lawyer says we'll reading Friday 10 a.m. Try not to be late for once. Nina looked at her bank account. $63.21. Lily's school lunch account was negative. The bus fare to the lawyer's office was $9 round trip. She could skip breakfast, pack crackers for Lily, make it work. Yeah, she texted back. I'll be there. The lawyer's office smelled like furniture polish and judgment. Marcus wore his dealership blazer, the one he claimed proved he'd made something of himself. Nina had come straight from the bakery, her hair still smelling like yeast. Thank you both for coming, Mr. Herrera said, adjusting his reading glasses. Douglas Webb's will is brief. To Marcus Webb, I leave my house at 2847 Crescent Drive and the contents of my savings account. To Nina Webb. Nina felt Marcus's satisfaction radiating across the table. Their father had never forgiven her for getting pregnant at 19, for dropping out of college, for choosing what he called the hard way. I leave the property at Old Mill Road, specifically the Webb family grain mill and surrounding 3 acres. Silence. The mill. Marcus laughed. The building that's been falling down since 1987? Mr. Herrera cleared his throat. The structure is compromised. The county has declared it unsafe. There's a demolition order pending, actually. The land itself has some value, but the cost of clearing the structure may exceed. So she gets nothing, Marcus interrupted. She gets a teardown and a tax liability. The property is hers, Mr. Herrera said quietly. He slid an envelope across the desk. Your father left this note. Inside was a single sentence in her father's shaking handwriting. You'll understand when you see it. See what? Nina asked. A condemned building? Mr. Herrera shook his head. I don't know. He didn't elaborate. Marcus stood, pocketing the key to their father's house. Well, Nina, good luck with your ruins. Try not to get tetanus. He paused at the door. Actually, do you need money for the demolition? I could lend you some. At interest, obviously. Nina said nothing. She learned not to give Marcus ammunition. Not when he told their father she was living off welfare and bad choices. Not when he'd refused to help with Lily's hospital bill, because actions have consequences. That afternoon, Nina stood in front of the mill as storm clouds gathered. The building tilted like a truck, its wooden walls gray with age and rot. Windows gaped empty. The water wheel had collapsed decades ago, just splinters and rust now. A chain-link fence surrounded the property, plastered with condemned and danger signs. The padlock was new. The key turned smoothly. Nina ducked under the chain and approached the main door. It hummed crooked on broken hinges. Inside was darkness and the smell of old wood and river water. She pulled out her phone for the flashlight. The interior was worse than she'd imagined. Holes in the floor opened onto the crawl space below. The grinding stone sat silent and cracked. Pigeons nested in the rafters. But along the far wall, something caught the light. A metal door. Industrial. Modern. Nina crossed carefully, testing each board before putting weight on it. The door had a combination lock, the kind on safes. She tried her father's birthday. Nothing. Her mother's. Nothing. On impulse, she tried her own. The lock clicked. Behind the door was a small room, dry and surprisingly clean, and stacked floor to ceiling, in neat bundles wrapped in plastic, were bricks of cash. Nina's legs went weak. She grabbed the doorframe. Her phone light swept across the room, stacks and stacks and stacks. Some bundles labeled in her father's handwriting, 1992. Mill profits. 1996. Land sale. 2003. Settlement. Her father had been hiding money here for decades. Her phone buzzed. Lily's after-school program. Pick up by 6 or late fee applies. Mina checked her watch. She had 40 minutes. She'd taken the bus here, which meant she'd need to run to make the 5:20. She couldn't miss it or the late fee would eat her last $60. She took one bundle, shoved it in her jacket, and ran. On the bus, squeezed between a sleeping teenager and a woman with grocery bags, Mina unzipped her jacket just enough to see the bills. Hundreds. Old hundreds, some with dates from the 1980s. She counted silently. The bundle held $10,000. Her hands shook. In her pocket, her father's note seemed to burn. You'll understand when you see it. Mina sat in the after-school program parking lot, the bundle of cash hidden under her seat, while Lily showed her a drawing of a house. That's where we'll live someday, Lily said, with a yard and a dog named Pancake. Why Pancake? Because pancakes make people happy. Mina's throat tightened. She drove home, the car sputtering, the check engine light glowing, and waited until Lily was asleep before she returned to the mill. This time she brought proper light, a flashlight she'd borrowed from work. As she stepped into the hidden room, the scale of it hit her fully. This wasn't a few $1,000s hidden from the IRS. This was decades of systematic hoarding. She started counting. By midnight, she'd cataloged $840,000 in one corner alone. Her father's handwriting appeared on bundles throughout. Web mill profits, 1988 to 1995. Sale of equipment. Insurance settlement. Some bundles were labeled simply, for emergencies. Mina sat on the dusty floor and tried to understand. Her father had lived in a modest house, drove a 15-year-old truck, refused to help when she'd called about Lily's hospital bills. You made your choices, he'd said. Live with them. And the whole time, he'd been sitting on a fortune in a rotting mill. Her phone lit up. A text from Marcus. Sold Dad's car today. $4,000. Moving into the house this weekend. You should see it. Everything's paid off. Lucky me, right? Smiling face with sunglasses, Nina stared at the message, then at the room full of cash. She took photos of everything. Then she called the one person who might know what to do. Shun and Associates, this is Jennifer. Hi, I need to speak to a lawyer about found money. A lot of found money. Jennifer connected her to David Shun, who listened without interrupting as Nina explained. The inheritance, the mill, the hidden room, the cash. How much are we talking about, he asked. I've counted $840,000 so far. I think there's more. A pause. Ms. Webb, don't touch anything else. I'm coming tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Don't tell anyone about this. Not family, not friends. If this money was hidden, there's a reason. Mina met him at the mill at dawn, before her bakery shift. David Chun was younger than she'd expected, maybe 35, with tired eyes that suggested too many early mornings. He wore jeans and carried a camera and a briefcase. Show me. They documented everything. David photographed each bundle, each label, the room itself. He worked methodically, his expression unreadable. Your father was hiding this from someone, he finally said. The question is who and why. Could be tax evasion. Could be divorce assets from your mother. Could be entirely legitimate savings he didn't trust banks with. We need to figure out which. How long will that take? Weeks. Maybe months. In the meantime, you can't spend any of it. If this money is legally yours, great. If it's not, spending it makes you criminally liable. Nina thought of the disconnection notice, the eviction warning she'd received yesterday, Lily's worn shoes. I don't have weeks. I have about 48 hours before we're homeless. David looked at her, really looked, taking in her bakery uniform, her exhaustion, her desperation. Okay, here's what we do. I'll advance you $5,000 against my eventual fee. You use that to stabilize. I'll work fast. But Nina, you have to trust me and stay quiet. My brother. Especially your brother. If this money gets contested, you want clean hands and a documented chain of discovery. If you're following Mina's story, hit that subscribe button, because what she discovers next will change everything. Over the next week, David worked while Nina kept her shifts, kept Lily fed, kept pretending everything was normal. The $5,000 felt like a life raft. She paid the electric bill, caught up rent, Bought Lily new shoes. Then David called. We need to meet. Now. He spread documents across her kitchen table while Lily watched cartoons in the next room. Your father kept meticulous records. I found them hidden in the mill's old office. Mina, this money is clean. All of it. Webb Mill was extremely profitable from 1975 to 1998. Your father saved almost everything. Never spent it. Never told anyone. When your mother died, he just kept saving. Like he was punishing himself. How much total? David met her eyes. $4.2 million. Mina's vision blurred. Say that again. $4,200,000. All legally yours. We'll need to report it for tax purposes, pay estate taxes, but after everything, you're walking away with roughly $3 million. Mina couldn't breathe. She looked at the efficiency apartment, at Lily's backpack patched with duct tape, at the stack of overdue notices she'd been hiding in the drawer. What do I do? First, quit your jobs. All 3 of them. Then we set up accounts, create a trust for Lily, make a plan. But Nina, this is real. You're financially secure. Actually, you're wealthy. That night, Nina lay awake while Lily slept beside her. She thought about calling Marcus, imagined his face when she told him about the mill's real contents. The smugness would crack. He'd sputter about fairness, about splitting it, about how Dad clearly wasn't in his right mind. But she didn't call. Instead, she pulled out her father's note and read it again by phone light. You'll understand when you see it. Not what you'll find. What you'll understand. Her father had lived poor while sitting on millions. He'd watched her struggle and never helped. Why? Then she remembered something. The last time she'd seen him, 3 months before he died. She'd asked to borrow money for Lily's medicine. He'd said no. But then he'd said something else. You're stronger than Marcus ever was. You'll figure it out. You always do. Not cruelty. A test. Her father had given Marcus comfort. The house, the savings, the easy inheritance. But he'd given Nina the mail because he knew she'd actually opened the door. She'd faced the condemned building, the danger signs, the mess. Marcus would have sold the land without ever going inside. Nina started crying. Angry tears, grateful tears, exhausted tears for all the nights she'd worked herself sick, all the times she'd chosen between food and electricity. But also tears of relief. Because it was over. The grinding poverty, the fear, the constant calculus of survival. Nina gave her notice at Morrison's Bakery on a Tuesday morning, 2 weeks after David had finished the legal paperwork. Her manager, Ruth, hugged her hard. I'm happy for you, honey. But Lord, I'll miss you. You're the only one who shows up on time. Ruth. Nina pulled an envelope from her back. I'm buying the bakery. Mr. Morrison wants to retire. And you've run this place for 20 years. It should be yours to manage. Real salary, health insurance, and we're replacing that ancient oven. Ruth's hands shook as she opened the envelope, a cashier's check for the down payment, partnership papers, a contract guaranteeing her position. Mina, you can't. This is too much. You gave me shifts when Lily was a baby. You let me bring her to work when I couldn't afford childcare. You pretended not to notice when I ate the day-old bread because I was too broke for groceries. Mina's voice cracked. This is me saying thank you. The diner was next. Mina walked in during lunch rush and found her old station, where she'd served coffee and absorbed complaints for 2 years. The owner, Frank, barely looked up when she asked to talk. Make it quick. We're slam. I'm buying the diner. My lawyer will contact you with an offer. It's generous. You'll want to take it. Frank laughed. With what money? You're a waitress. Mina smiled. Not anymore. She walked out without looking back. The hardest conversation was with Marcus. She invited him to the mill, watching his BMW pull up with satisfaction written all over his face. He probably thought she was asking for money to demolish it. So, you finally ready to admit defeat, he said, climbing out. I told you Dad's gift was garbage. Look, I'll help with demolition costs, but you'll owe me. Marcus, shut up and come inside. She led him to the hidden room. She'd left everything exactly as she'd found it, with David's documentation stacked neatly on a folding table. Marcus stood in the doorway, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. What is this? $4.2 million. Dad had it here for 30 years, and he left it all to me. Marcus's face went purple. That's not. You have to split it. The will didn't say. The will said the mill and everything in it goes to me. David Chun is my lawyer. Everything's documented, legal, and completely mine. She handed him a folder. But you should know, I'm keeping the mill standing. I'm turning it into a community center. Free childcare for single parents. Job training. After-school programs. I'm calling it the Douglas Webb Center for Second Chances. You're insane. Dad would never. Dad gave you the easy inheritance because you can't handle anything hard. He gave me this because he knew I'd actually open the door. Mina's voice was steady. We're done here, Marcus. Don't call me again. She walked out, leaving him sputtering in the ruins. 3 months later, Mina stood in the bakery, her bakery now, watching Ruth train 2 new hires. The ancient oven had been replaced. The equipment gleamed. The morning rush flowed smooth and profitable. Her phone buzzed. David Chun, mill renovation permits approved. Construction starts Monday. Mina smiled. The mill wouldn't be demolished. She'd hired structural engineers, architects who specialized in historical restoration. The building would be stabilized, restored, transformed. The water wheel would turn again, this time powering the lights in the after-school center where kids like Lily, kids whose parents worked 3 jobs, could do homework in safety. That evening, Mina picked up Lily from her new school. Not the underfunded public school with a broken playground, but a small private academy with art classes and a nurse's office and teachers who remembered every child's name. Mama, guess what? We're learning about architecture. I'm gonna design a house with a yard and a room just for Pancake. We can get Pancake whenever you want, baby. Really? Lily's eyes went wide. Really? This weekend we'll go to the shelter. They drove to their new house, not the efficiency apartment, but a real 3-bedroom with a fenced yard and a porch. Mina had bought it outright, no mortgage. She'd furnished Lily's room with everything a 6-year-old could want, but kept her own bedroom simple. She didn't need much. Just stability. Just breathing room. That night, after Lily was asleep with Pancake, a scruffy terrier mix, curled at her feet, Mina sat on the porch and opened her father's note one more time. Underneath the first sentence, hidden in the fold, was another line she'd missed before. You were always the strong one. Make it count. Mina thought about Marcus in his inherited house, already complaining on Facebook about property taxes. She thought about Ruth, who'd cried for an hour when she realized she finally had health insurance. She thought about the mill, soon to be filled with kids and hope and second chances. Her phone lit up. An email from the Douglas Webb Center's architect, preliminary designs attached. Mina opened them. The mill would be beautiful, preserved but renewed, the old bones supporting something entirely new. Kind of like her. Are we going to be okay, Mama? Lily had asked in the efficiency apartment, in the life that felt like drowning. Mina looked at her sleeping daughter, at the house they owned, at the future they were building. She thought about all the single mothers still working 3 jobs, still choosing between electricity and food, still fighting to prove they weren't worthless. The foundation she'd started with $1 million would help some of them. Not all. Never all. But some. She pulled out her laptop and started writing. A blog post about inheriting poverty and finding wealth. About fathers who test instead of help. About women who refuse to stay broken. She hit publish and watched it go live. Her phone buzzed immediately. Comments flooding in. Messages from women who understood. Requests for interviews. People wanting to know more about the Douglas Webb Center. Mina closed the laptop. Tomorrow she'd answer them. Tonight she just sat on her porch, in her house, breathing air that didn't taste like fear. The mill had held $4 million. But what her father really left her was something more valuable. Proof that seeing what others miss, walking through the condemned door, opening the hidden room, changes everything. Yeah, baby, Nina whispered into the darkness. We're gonna be okay. We're gonna be more than okay. And for the first time in her entire adult life, it was true.